Yeah, I think that they can do it together. So we're gonna go ahead and play it that way. I'm pretty sure that's how it should work. All right, so it's going to be two attack factors for each of them. They're doubled. Each of them are doubled because they're countercharging cavalry, or excuse me, infantry. Now, if there's cavalry involved and you countercharge the cavalry, you're not doubled. So it's going to be 4 to 2 plus 2 column. Die roll comes in a 5. And you can spend morale and stuff there, but it just doesn't make sense for anyone to do that at this point yet. Now, die roll 5 is a DR result, so I'm glad I rolled up one of those. A DR result means defender routes. Now, here's how a route works. Whenever you route, you're going to retreat, so it's going to be like a withdraw, but you determine how far you retreat. For each unit affected by route, they're going to retreat a number of hexes equal to a die roll. So, in my earlier attack, if both of those cavalry units that were attacking had routed, then you would have to roll a die for each of them, and each of them would route. Now, here's the kicker. If your die roll, in other words, if your result, your route result, is greater than your movement point rating, you still route that far, but you lose a morale point. So I potentially could have lost 2 French morale by a DR result on that earlier combat. In this case, there's only one defender here, the Prussian Third Corps, that's going to route, and his die roll is a 6. Well, this pretty much sums it up. Now, you could retreat towards either lock, but it's a no-brainer now. He's going to have to retreat to the lock in hex, or toward hex 2012. So he's going to move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I believe that's okay. So he's moving closer to that line of control, or line of communications hex. Now, there's an optional rule in the game that I like to play with, and we're going to go ahead and use it now because it adds a lot to the game with not a lot of rules weight at all. And that is, when you route, you get a routed unit marker on you, and that takes away your zone of control. You still have a 1/2 of your attack factors for combat, but if you try to move, you move in such a way that you have to be closer towards your line of communications until that route marker goes away. The route marker goes away at the end of the player turn if you're not in anybody's zone of control. So, I think I said that right. Correct me on that if I'm wrong, Steve. Now, in this case here, they retreated 6 hexes, but you'll recall that his movement rating is 2, so 6 is obviously way greater than 2, so the Allies are going to lose a further morale point. Let me go ahead and adjust that on the play aid. Now, it's interesting. There was a +2 column on the CRT. The French rolled a 5. Had the it really didn't make sense for the Allies to spend a morale point to add in the reserves because it would have been been in the same situation. They just wouldn't have retreated as far. So, not a catastrophe yet for the Allies, but it's not the greatest start either. Now, one of the attacking infantry or cavalry has to advance, so we're going to go ahead and advance that guy there. Now it's going to get a little bit uglier for the Allies because the Prussian First Corps must attack the Imperial Guard in Ligny and also the Third Corps in hex 408. Regarding the route markers are removed during the attacker's turn, so the routed marker is going to come off here in just a few minutes from that Prussian boy. Okay, and he routed so far that it's not going to make a huge difference at this point. It's when you have the shorter route distances where that route marker can be make for some interesting play. Okay, so here's where it's going to get ugly. The First Corps is going to attack both the Third and the Imperial Guard. So the Imperial Guard is going to have its combat factor up by +1 because he's in a town. So he's going to be 5 factors +2 for the Third Corps. So that's 7 against the 3. So the attacker, no matter what, even if they spent reserves, is going to be firing on the -2 column. Now here's where it's interesting. You know, when you attack somebody, sometimes you just want to get into contact with the enemy in such a way to where they are compelled to make an unfavorable attack against you. So that's one of the serious considerations in the game that makes you make really, really important decisions during your turn, because what you do during your turn could have additional benefit during your opponent's upcoming turn. So in this case, he's going to have to hope for a good result here. And he does. He rolls a 6, which is really cool. That's a end result or no result. So he stays in place. and that effectively locks the Imperial Guard and the Third Corps in place for the French next turn. So that was actually a very heroic stand by the Prussian First Corps just outside of Ligny. And you can see how the game builds just a fantastic narrative. That concludes the first game turn, and we'll move on to the second game turn. Okay, the Prussians' First Corps has made a heroic stand outside of Ligny and held off the French, which is going to slow their advance toward the Allies. Now this turn, you'll see on the turn record, the turn chart is going to be on the right-hand side, or the turn track rather, is going to be on the right-hand side of the map. And you'll see that on game turn 2, it's evening, so this is the last daylight turn before we're going to have a night turn. And you'll see that there's a French flag there, which indicates French are going to get a reinforcement this turn. So we don't forget, I'm going to go ahead and move him over to the side of the map so we can remember he's going to come on this turn. And we're going to pull a random event first for the French. And the random event is Sacre Bleu. If one side is ahead in morale points, it immediately loses one. This is where the game can really just tick you off here. So the French were up by 2 morale, which means they were sitting pretty, but now they're going to lose 1, so they go down 1 morale. Ugly, ugly, ugly. Didn't want that to happen. And now we're going to freeze up the guys that are in zones of control. So these guys here, they're stuck. They're not going anywhere. Everyone else is maneuverable. So now the cavalry doesn't really make sense to go after the Prussian Second Corps because they are, they're in the woods. It's just not a good idea. But let's go ahead and try to gang up here and try to kill the First Corps that's in Hex 508. So 4th Corps moves up the road 1, and then 2, and he freezes in place. Next, let's go ahead and take the cavalry, 4th Corps cavalry, and let's move in 1 and 2, like so. Yeah, I don't want to do overkill here. So he's in his own control and he stops. Now 2nd Corps moves toward the road 1, and then 2 onto the road toward Quatre-Bras. It'd be tempting to attack Quatre-Bras, but we're not in a really good position to do so because the Allies position their forces quite well. Now the French could spend a morale point here in an effort to gain an extra movement points. Why would they want to do that? Well, so you could get 1st Corps to go 1, 2, and 3 to get an attacker on the reserves, but not necessarily a good call right now. So I'm going to play it cautious and move him 1 right up there like so. Take the cavalry 1, 2, 3 like so. See if we can get him into a flank position. And then the reinforcement's going to come on from any of these blue borders. Using the road, he's going to go 1, 2, and 3. We still have some cavalry in the south. And, we could start running for Wavre. 1, 2, 3. And this guy here will just move like so in order to screen the southern flank. Just leave him like that. Alright, we really only have one big attack. It's going to be the whole gang against Prussian First Corps. So it looks like 6, 7, 8, 9 against 3. No need for reserves on either side because we're hopelessly on the right-hand side of the track of the combat results table. So here comes the die roll. It's a 1. Wow. Handed to the Prussian First Corps. That's an EX exchange result, which means break all defending units. So let's go ahead and do this one at a time. I'm going to use the broken units window. So the First Corps is going to go into that window. Bang. Now when a unit breaks, the opposing side gains a morale point, and the owning side loses a morale point. So the French go up 1, and the Allies go down 1. Okay? Now, it gets uglier, because now the French have to break, the attacker must break attacking units in such a way that they break units with an aggregate attack factor equal to or higher than the defender. So the defender broke attack factors worth of 3, so the French have to break at least 3 attack factors. The only way to do this with 1 would be to break the Imperial Guard, but that's going to cost you 2 morale. So it makes sense just to go ahead and do this. We're going to break the 3rd Corps, and the cavalry. And what that is going to do is that's going to cost the French 2 morale. So the French go down to 5, and the Allied morale goes up 1 and 2. So now the Allies are ahead in morale. So you can see how things really, the tables got turned there, big time. And obviously we're going to go ahead and advance. We'll advance the Imperial Guard there. And that will conclude a very ugly opening sequence for the French. The heroic Prussian First Corps has done a number on the French. Oh, and we forgot to take that routed marker off last turn. Let's get rid of that. Okay, so that was the end of the French half of the turn. So we go to the Allied half of the turn, and we're going to pull a random event. And a random event is according to plan. No effect, reshuffle the cards. So that's going to reorganize the pool there of random events. And everybody's maneuverable. We're going to go ahead and take the Prussians and start marching them backwards, though. We're going to go 1 and 2. And we'll leave the guy in Mont Saint Gilbert, we're going to leave him right where he's at for now. The rest of the Allies, we're going to go ahead and move the reserves up here to engage the French 2nd Cavalry Corps. So the French 2nd Cavalry Corps advances upward.